I've done most of the things that
The External Affairs Vice President is in charge of representing the ASUC in matters that involve other campuses and is the lead in supervising governmental lobbying at the local, state, and national level. The candidates for EAVP are Isamar Almaraz of Defend Affirmative Action, who is represented by Ronald Cruz, Danny Haber of Student Action, Brett Hallahan of Squelch, and Joan Jones of CalServe.
The first question for the External Affairs Vice President is, the External Affairs Office is chiefly responsible for lobbying on students' behalf at the local, state, and national level. How would you determine which issues your office would lobby for, and would your personal views play any part in this? How would you improve the current mechanisms, particularly community forums, which ensure students' voices are represented in this process? Again, the External Affairs Office is chiefly responsible for lobbying on students' behalf at the state, local, and national level. How would you determine which issues your office would lobby for, and would your personal views play any part in this? How would you improve the current mechanisms, particularly community forums, which ensure students' voices are represented in this process? The order for the first question is Danny, Brett, Joan, and Ronald.
As the External Affairs Vice President, I think that it's really important that your ideas do not take over what you are going to potentially be lobbying the local, state, what you're going to be lobbying for at the local, state, and national level. First of all, I think that something that affects all students is the student fee increases. I think that everybody can relate to that issue. I think that it's very important to tackle that issue not only on the state level, but also on a local level. I think that level often gets largely ignored. Having worked in the Legislative Assistant Office, they constantly seek student input but don't necessarily receive it. So I think that it's really important to lobby on the local level to bodies such as the Rent Board to stabilize rent so it's more affordable to live in the city of Berkeley. As far as communication goes, I think that it's very important to have open forums to discuss that. Not only town halls, but making the websites more accessible to students, making them aware that these exist, making sure that they're updated so students can regularly check them. I also think that it's very important that there is a section of the website to have student input, to recommend the issues that they care about, that they want to see discussed, that they want to be lobbied for, and that we collectively decide as a student body what we are going to lobby for and what we are going to do together as one university, one voice.
Thank you. Next speaker is Brett.
Pitiful humans! Once you place me in the halls of power, I shall crush all those who stand in the way of my glorious vision for the future. Student opinions and my personal opinions shall become one, and all those who stand in our way shall be brutally crushed beneath my heel. That is all.
Hold your applause until all the speakers.
Really good.
Joan.
Okay. How's it going, everyone? So I believe that student input is huge. It's a huge deal in the ASUC. I worked in the ASUC for 2.5 years in almost all of the offices. And so as EAVP, I would initiate community forums for different communities so they could come in and EAVP could become more collaborative with student organizations. For example, I would have people in the queer community come in and do a lobby on things they're passionate about, like queer issues, repealing Prop 8. And I would have environmentalists come in and say things that they're passionate about on the local level so that they could have their voice on the city level. I think that it's not my job to say what's important to students, but have students come to me and say what they're passionate about and facilitate leadership development so that they can make these things happen in a very tangible way. A huge deal for EAVP is working with city issues. You know, believe it or not, UC Berkeley students make up 20% of the city. They should be lobbying on things that is important to them in this current economic crisis. I believe yes. In this current economic crisis, I believe yes. You know, affordability is a huge issue, and there's not just one way to tackle it. You have to go in from the city and make sure students have access to affordable housing, but you also have to go in on the state level and make sure that things like important legislation, like the College Affordability Act, is being passed. College Affordability Act will make sure that student fees freeze for 5 years. These are very important things that are tangible that all students can relate to, but we must not just pick one thing to work on EAVP, but make sure that we're spreading out and making sure that every perspective is heard in the student body.
Ronald?
We in the Defend Affirmative Action Party think it is our job to say right now, before the election, what our positions are on the sets of issues, affirmative action, winning the DREAM Act, and that the process by which students decide what their leaders will do in office is the selection. If the Defend Affirmative Action Party were elected, it's very clear where we stand on a variety of issues, and I refer people to the program that all the people in DAF stand on. And I think it's important to say that also, in addition to saying what goals we have, to say how we're going to achieve them. I think if we look at the record of the past year, I think it was unfortunate that the Defend Affirmative Action Party was not in the ASUC. We missed two opportunities. Last September, the DREAM Act, the California DREAM Act, was before Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he could have signed that bill, and it was very likely that he could have, as a moderate Republican, signed that bill into law so that undocumented immigrants get financial aid. Only BAM, and not the ASUC, or other, it was mobilizing people to Sacramento. If the ASUC had called a statewide mobilization for that day, and you built a united action with all organizations, no matter what your affiliation, with campuses across the state to march as one, we could have won that legislation. And Proposition 8 was debated at the California Supreme Court. We know there's tremendous support for gay marriage in this state, but that was not, and we saw it last November, but that was not seen in San Francisco, where anti-gay demonstrators outnumber pro-gay demonstrators. What a crock. That was ridiculous. UC Berkeley's across the bay, and half of the student body should have been at the Supreme Court. And I think as External Affairs Vice President Isamar Almaraz would be calling for action. Action, action.
Thank you, Ronald. The second question. In the past school year, a predator committed 20 reported sexual assaults on the south side of campus. Given safety concerns arising from these incidents, as well as the stabbing of a fraternity member on Piedmont Avenue, how would you go beyond what has already been done to ensure that Cal is a safer place? Again, can we keep those side conversations to a minimum, please? In the past school year, a predator committed 20 reported sexual assaults on the south side of campus. Given safety concerns arising from these incidents, as well as the stabbing of a fraternity member on Piedmont Avenue, how would you go beyond what has already been done to ensure that Cal is a safer place? The order is Brett, Josh, Danny, and Ron. Danny, Joe, and Ronald. Sorry.
You do not yet know the meaning of fear. Once I am swept into office, the streets shall be cleared of all those who threaten students. Once my almighty army of robots patrols every street corner, brutally destroying anyone who would dare threaten one of our own. Now you may think this sounds extreme. Is it not perhaps a stretch to elect someone so clearly evil to the vice presidency? Yet, was it not so long ago that Americans elected the most evil man in memory to the vice presidency? I speak, of course, of Walter Mondale. Yet, unlike Mondale, I pledge that I shall not be brought down by a highly trained team of experts in various fields of espionage and military arts, handpicked by Dag Hammarskjöld himself. And once I complete my cloning task, my reign shall last forever, and no one shall fear anyone other than me.
The next speaker is Danny.
Crime is a huge issue every year, but especially this year. Violent crime has gone up 17% in the last 4 years, and it is an issue that we need to tackle now, especially on the south side. So one thing that I think that we can do to prevent crime in the future is get increased police walking beats and riding on bikes. That makes them more accessible to the general student population and really allows them to see what is actually going on in and around the campus. Another thing that we can do is increase blue lights. Blue lights always make students feel a lot more protected. Seeing them near them just establishes a feeling of comfort. Also, another thing that we can do, putting GPS systems on the night shuttles. Right now the night shuttles run on that half an hour and students wait for them or don't even use them. They have to make the choice between practicality and safety, which is a choice that students should not have to make on our campus. If we put tracking systems on the night shuttle, we'll be able to see exactly where they are in real time, because you're just as likely to get robbed sitting outside at night waiting for the night shuttle to come as you are walking home. Lastly, I just think that safety needs to be a huge priority for the EAVP office, and as the legislative assistant for District 8, I have had the opportunity to work with both UCPD and Berkeley PD, and I really think that those two bodies need to collaborate in the future, pool their resources together. When you look at the Berkeley Community Crime View and you get to the city of Berkeley, and you get to the University of Berkeley, there is a huge hole because they're not compiling their data, which makes me believe that they're not compiling their resources and working in conjunction as they should be to protect the students of UC Berkeley.
Thank you. Joan?
Okay, so I also believe that safety is a huge concern on this campus, especially for us as students. You know, we all know what it's like to come home late at night from classes or from organizations, and so I've been there as well, so I really understand and feel that. I would actually question the previous speaker, though, about like, what is the point of actually increasing the amount of police if there's nothing for them to do? And so one thing I really want to do is work with the city and the UCPD and the university and city officials to come up with a safety task force. So we're not just putting students or CSO officers on the street, but we're giving them stuff to do. And how do we dictate that? By creating student input, so that students have input. Right now in the city of Berkeley, if someone gets molested, if someone has a crime happen to them, there is no place to actually come and talk about our concerns, and a place where students and university officials and city officials could come and say, this is what we're going to do to stop this. And so I really want to work to create that next year, because that needs to happen. We need to have a comprehensive plan for what we're going to do when safety things like this occur on campus versus being very reactionary, which is what the city of Berkeley has done and what the university has done for a very long time. So I really want to work to bridge communications with all parties to make this campus a more safe place. But there's a lot more that I want to do too. I really want to make sure that budget cuts are happening, and they're happening across the board. But the university should never ever compromise student safety. And by cutting CSO officers, by cutting the Bear Walk services and different things like that, which they have done, is compromising our safety. And so I will ensure as the EAVP that this does not happen, that students are prioritized, and work with the Office of the President, who will also be working on safety as well. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Before I address this question, I just want to say quickly what Defend Affirmative Action Party would press as EAVP would be winning the DREAM Act in the California and federal levels, eliminating the SAT in the university, and also demanding that some of the present federal stimulus package go immediately now to public higher education. And I support many of these proposals some of the proposals actually, that are being proposed, some basic things such as lights. The university should hire more students, many of whom still need jobs, to be helping with the safety question in Southside. We do not need more police. Police, their traditional role has been, the experience for Black and Latino people has been, oh, I don't want to go to Berkeley because I'm going to get harassed by the police. And the situation with Oscar Grant shows that things like this are true. And there's a very different experience, for some of you don't believe this, for Black and Latino students than for other students. So, also the question of the sexual assaults. Of course, it's egregious and unacceptable. But I would also point out that the statistics say that 1 out of 3 women, or 1 out of 4 women graduating from college are raped or sexual assault is attempted upon them. There's a greater endemic problem of sexism and against women, even here at a liberal Berkeley campus, that we need to combat. The fact that there's low underrepresented minority student enrollment means this campus is more atomized. Those who have strong voices of dissent and will stand up proudly against discrimination of all sorts are not here. Lower income students are not here. That inevitably creates a situation where students feel more atomized, women who are victims feel more like that they are individuals, and we need more events like the public hearings on campus, hostile climate, where people come forward with their specific stories and demand, and we as a community student body can decide collectively what collective actions we'll take to combat racism, sexual assault on campus.
Thank you, Ron. Those are all the questions for External Affairs Vice President. Thank you.